Hey everybody, ABC 10 meteorologist Brenden Mincheff here. Governor Newsom gave an update on the drought, so we've got a special late week edition of the drought update. Let's break down what Governor Gavin Newsom talked about today in his announcement. He said it's complicated. That's a quote. That was the governor's response to the question, is the drought over? A lot of us asking that question. It is complicated indeed. Yes and no. I've been saying that for several weeks at this point. Some areas that we've seen improvement in were down from 81 drought provisions when we were in the peak of the drought emergency, down to just 33. So we went from 81 to 33. Part of that has to do with areas that are still seeing drought, including the Colorado River. Talk about that in just a second. But the other thing that a lot of us are going to notice is that 15% voluntary water reduction, that has come to an end. So we're no longer being asked to reduce our water by 15%. Some areas of concern, though, like I mentioned, the Colorado River, the Klamath River is another one that we do have some concerns about. So we just have not seen the rainfall up in far northern California. And of course, the Colorado reaches from Wyoming and the state of Colorado all the way down through the desert Southwest and into Southern California. So that's not just a California issue, but Southern California does take a significant portion of their water off of the Colorado River. So that's why we still have some of these drought provisions, right? Not totally gone, down from 81 to 33. And then groundwater, another source of water for a lot of people, especially here in the Central Valley. Groundwater has a long way to go as well. We do expect to make some gains on the groundwater, however, with all of the rain that we've had and the snow melt that we will have as we go throughout basically the entire summer at this point. We just heard that some ski resorts are going to be open through about the July 4th weekend. Looking at the drought monitor from this week, you can see now the entire California coast is out of drought, and the abnormally dry is 15% right now. That is not technically drought. That is either recovering or entering drought. But in our case, across the map, that yellow drought or that yellow color means it is recovering. So still some work to do, especially in the Sacramento Valley. But this is the best the drought map has looked since February 25th, 2020, with a drought score of 93. This week it is 96. This goes to a scale of 500 being the absolute worst. That is thanks to some reservoirs filling up. We've essentially ended the surface water drought, right? This is the short-term drought stuff, that's over, but the long-term stuff, the Colorado River Basin, that's a long-term project that we're going to have to work on. Groundwater, another long-term project. But in terms of reservoirs, more of a short-term kind of deal, we've seen a lot of improvement. Shasta is perhaps one of the best examples. It is now above average for this time of year, 101% of that average today. And in terms of capacity, it is now at 78% capacity. Kind of hard to see, but it is right there. And that thicker blue line is the average for this time of year. So Shasta's done really well, but of course we can't say anything about drought without talking about the snowpack. Northern Sierra snowpack, 180% of April 1st average. Central Sierra, 227% of that April 1st average. And Southern Sierra, 282% of April 1st average. Another way to really think about this, that's almost 3 years worth of snow on the Southern Sierra right now. Good news in terms of drought. However, one thing we're going to have to keep an eye on, not only in the spring, but also throughout the summer, is going to be flooding. That is a lot of snow melt that we're going to have to be dealing with. One last thing I'll show you, not a full drought update today, but an important one nonetheless. When we look at the combined water storage levels, this is updated March 17th. This is for Northern California. You can see reservoirs are just a little bit below average right there. This thicker kind of blue background there is the average line. And so where we are right there, just a little bit below that. But when we look at snowpack, it is above average. That's the gray there. It's above average in Northern California, but especially in Southern California, look at this. Reservoirs above average and snow is way above average. The snowpack is just, again, incredible. We talked about it, right? 282% of that April 1st average in the Southern Sierra. And so when you look at the storage, the water storage that we have up there, it is just, again, almost 3 years worth of snow. And of course, we're storing as much of that as we can. We're trying to put some of that in the ground, keeping it in the reservoirs as much as possible. But the fact of the matter is we're going to have a lot of water that runs off that we're going to have to let go. And we're going to have a lot of flooding issues, especially in the Southern Central Valley as we go through the spring and summer. I'll have much more on this drought update through the weekend. Of course, every Sunday we do that drought update, so we'll have a longer extended breakdown there of where we are in terms of drought. But the governor himself saying it's complicated, but rolling back a lot of the drought emergency restrictions and conservation measures that we have had over the last several years because of, frankly, an astonishingly wet winter that we've had.